Agenda. Please welcome this brave lady, Lisa Benson.
Thank you, Billy. Great pleasure to be here. And I'm only a mom. It sounds like a terrific resume, doesn't it? I really have a graduate degree in public administration and an undergraduate degree in archaeology, which I think has aided me in peeling back the onion from these stories. And so many of us, these are very, very powerful stories. Thank you so much for your testimony today. Because it is why we are all here. I have to tell you, I'm no superwoman. I'm just a mom. I'm a mom of 2 Jewish boys. And if you know anything about Jewish women and Jewish moms, we'll hang on those kids until they're 40. We'll tell them what to do until they're 45. And we will not let go until they put us 6 feet under. And so I feel it is my obligation as a mother, my obligation to them, to help protect this nation. And I ask you to listen to everything I say today. You had a great lunch, we had great speakers. Now it's time to get angry. Now it's time to get involved. Now it's time to find your voice in this sector, because I am only one of a few women in America doing this, and I cannot do it alone. I spent half my life in Phoenix, Arizona, where I own a home, and I spend the other half of my life in Charleston, South Carolina. So if I say you all, it's because I had to leap tall buildings with a single bound to get here, because I just got off a plane. The grits are good. Don't tell the rabbi I ate the shrimp. But there's a reason why I spent half my time in 2 states. We share something in common with South Carolina. 2 of the most esteemed foreign policy senators with the most gravitas in Senate are the 2 amigos that are running our foreign policy, John McCain and Lindsey Graham. They're not going anywhere, and that's okay. But you, my friends, ladies and gentlemen, will in fact pick up your game. So the next time there is a town hall in Scottsdale, or in Charleston, or anywhere in this country, you will not let John McCain say to you, I got this covered. I've been to Syria. I know those Syrians. He went and he spoke to the wrong Syrians. And even last night on Hannity, he professed that he knows this Free Syrian Army. He knows nothing. And if he knows, it is willful blindness that he is trying to pull the wool over your eyes. I think John McCain either does not know or really believes, like the president, that we actually can deal with the Muslim Brotherhood. There are 2 Free Syrian armies. One are the dissidents that left Bashar al-Assad's army. General Vallely, come listen to him when he's here. He taught me this. He was on my radio show hours after coming off a plane from Syria. Lisa, there are 2 Free Syrian armies. The good guys, of which I just met, and the bad guys who John McCain and Lindsey Graham just met. We must not. There were 2 committee hearings today, and when you go home today, you must turn on Fox News and you must listen. What is ISIS? What happened in Benghazi? Do not call what happened 13 years ago a tragedy. It was a terrorist atrocity, an act of war, a war crime. The president and the administration continues to call it a counterterrorism measure. The self-proclaimed jihadists responsible for hijacking American jets and using them as missiles targeted the World Trade Center because it was a Western financial capital, a place where men and women of many ethnicities and religions worked in peace and prosperity. Another flew into the Pentagon, the brain center of the greatest army in the world. And the last one more jet was meant to hit the political heart of the free world, either the White House or the Capitol. But brave Americans who realized the plot aided in crashing that plane in Shanksville. We remember them, we honor their memory, and in their memory, we never let this happen again. I credit the late Christopher Hitchens when he said, "Do you know that date, September 11th, was a very historic date? In September 11th, 1683, the conquering armies of Islam were met and held back at the gates of Vienna. That date, September 11th, was purposefully picked for those terrorists to attack us. Islamists. Islamists. You don't hear the president say Islamist State, do you? He says ISIL. He'll say ISIS. But this morning, watching the news, I realized why. By saying ISIL, he doesn't have to say the word Islamist. So when you hear him say that, remember I told you. Jeremiah Wright. Shake your heads, ladies and gentlemen, but he was the spiritual advisor for 20 years to this president. He said after 9/11, 9/11 was about America's chickens coming home to roost. The longtime minister of the Obama family unforgettably characterized the murder of more than 3,000 Americans as a protest against imperialism, colonialism, and occupation. That is the progressive mantra. It's our fault. Gaza was our fault. This is our fault. The Taliban is our fault. ISIS is our fault. And that's why they cannot decide in Washington which way to go. Do I go left? Do I go right? Do I fight them in Syria? Do I just do nothing? If you think I wanted to give up a career in public relations and marketing to come on the road and educate you all, I had no idea that this would happen to me. But late last week, we heard the mother of all political speeches. How many of you heard of Barack Obama while I was out in Carolina talk about what was ISIS? Everything you needed to know about his agenda was in the first minute of that speech. The president in his agenda said in the first minute, ISIS, ISIL, ISIS, is not Islamic. No religion condones killing. Mr. President, you are willfully blind, and all of us are going to remind you, ISIS exists to manifest a caliphate, an empire, which is Sharia in nature. As we gather here right now, Trey Gowdy from South Carolina has a select committee. Bless that man and say a prayer over him. I just returned from his district where they say he'll get the job done, if he can. His family, by the way, they've targeted him. They threaten him, even his children. I got into a security vehicle because I had a security detail while I was there. They said to me, the last one to sit here was Trey Gowdy, but he doesn't like it. I said, I like it. The air conditioning is really good in this car, in this Escalade. Who are these people? They are Islamists. Islam, an Arabic term, means submission. It means control. You see that book back there? Jan, if you could bring me a book, I'd appreciate it. I forgot. Everything you need to know that happened after 9/11 is in this book. I wrote the piece on Benghazi in here. Shariaism is here. The battle to control women and everybody else. Just come down to Phoenix one day and see the Somalis in the hijabs and their najabs. Go into my Home Depot, into my Walmart, and see the men with their multiple wives and children. And I'd like to tell you that we are the only state that is seeing this, but every state that I visit is seeing the same thing. This book is the Bible, folks, for you to know. And I'm happy to autograph it and sell it to you today. It's what holds up my ability to travel the country. What is it? It is a way of life for a fifth of the world's population. Muslims are spread all over the entire world. They speak many languages, and they are unified by their holy text, the Quran. On my board of directors is somebody I know you all know, because I bet you all watch Fox. Not only is Major General Valley on my board, but Mr. Dr. Zuhdi Jasser, my friend, my colleague, my partner. And I would have had his books today, but he didn't get them to me on time. He is a Muslim. He wants to see reformation. And if you have anybody in front of you up here putting down every piece of being a Muslim, you are making a mistake. There are people out there that want to speak up, that need you to lift them up. But what happens to them? As in Mosul, they get beheaded. The Quran is love, violence, benevolence, and hatred. Shariaism, is about control. It is the body that is the canon law based on the Quran. Everything, honor killings, marriage, law. You can pat yourselves on the back because your state representatives did something that only 7 other states have done so far. You have a constitution that would support Sharia courts, but in the state of Arizona, we passed American laws for American courts right underneath the nose of the Council of Arab-Islamic Relations, and we did so because the good legislators of our state had the good sense to do it. Now I'm in South Carolina trying to pass the same thing. 22 jihad training camps across this country. Wait till I tell you about that. This is not about religion. Don't let anybody tell you that this is a political movement. It's political Islam. Are we all equipped to fight this now? We are diminished. We have had an appeasement government, failed foreign policy, both sides of the aisle. Nobody knows what to do. Let me give you a little background. How many of you know the names of the people tied to Muslim Brotherhood who work in the White House? Let's just review this one more time so you could, as I say in my southern accent, one more time for all of y'all to know. American Spectator wrote this article. Mohammed El-Abiari, the most senior official in the White House on Homeland Security, he just decided to resign. On his Twitter feed, he would put the hand of the Muslim Brotherhood every couple of weeks. He didn't resign because the president was upset with him. He's been sent to Texas to do the job there. Arif Allah Khan, Assistant Secretary for Public Policy. Rashid Hussain, Special Envoy to the Organization of Islamic Conferences. Salam al-Mariyati, Obama Advisor, Founder, Muslim Public Affairs Council. Iman Mohammed Magid, Obama's Sharia czar. Put that with the Ebola czar. The Islamic Society of North America, which in this book shows you directly the ties to Muslim Brotherhood. And here's my favorite. Well, actually, Mohammed Magid, the Islamic Society of North America. Did you see Jimmy Carter speak last weekend? He spoke for them. He told them, it's all our fault. They're the good guys. This book tells you how they are associated with Muslim Brotherhood. Then there's my other favorite guy, Ivo Patel, Advisory Council on Faith-Based Neighborhoods. The newest member of the team in the White House is Fatima Noor, 30 years old out of Vanderbilt University. She is now the Assistant Director for Immigration. She belongs to the Muslim Student Association. That is, Muslim Student Associations, ladies and gentlemen, were the first entities in the United States to come from Egypt as part of the Muslim Brotherhood. In all seriousness, all of you need to know, the nation is in an alarming state of emergency. For that matter, the world is in crisis under the threat of this brazen new generation of battle-hardened Islamists that we have called ISIS, ISIL, Islamic State. They have rebelled against Al-Qaeda, seeing the old guard's leadership as too politically passive and restrained in the lack of violence. What I have been saying on the road is Al-Qaeda is your granddaddy's jihad. ISIS is their great-grandson. They are savvy. They are rich. Every day. How many of you are on Twitter? Oh, wow, look at all those hands come up. Ladies and gentlemen, please, I don't want to have a stroke up here. The battle is on the Twitter feeds. If you think the battle is in Syria and Iraq, you're not paying attention. They have 15,000 sites a day running on Twitter, trying to convince the media, trying to recruit. And part of what I do is to try to train you all on how many of you on Facebook, please? Okay, those people will connect with me, and you'll get on the private sites, because you're out of the loop. You're not getting the message. You're not helping us drive the narrative. How many of you get an email and send it to a friend when you get upset? More. You know what that means? You're not compounding your activism. You get an email and it says, President Obama said today, and you go, oh my God, what did he say now? And you send it to your friends and your family, who are already disgusted, who are already saying, I can't take it anymore, and throw their shoes at the TV. Our job is to fight with our missile defense system, which right now is Twitter and Facebook. It's the only thing we have, and instead we're using muskets. Yeah. It's not going to work. We're going to lose, and we're going to lose the elections in 2016 unless all of you get busy, and I'm happy to help you. Millions of Americans this past week are reflecting on the tragedy of 9/11. While Israel yesterday, and they still remain sitting on the front lines of Western civilization, Operation Protective Edge was a provocation to get Israel involved because Iran was behind it all. The early part of July, 3 weeks approximately after Operation Protective Edge, a self-described heir to the Prophet Muhammad declared himself supreme leader of a new Islamic state, stretching from eastern Syria to northern Iraq. How did Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, 40 years old, self-proclaim himself and maneuver himself out of Al-Qaeda as the new vanguard of this jihadist ideology? It is jihad. It is war. And how does this impact Arizona? Well, first we're hearing this. You have to laugh. In 2012, the FBI, under the auspices of the Obama administration, decide to purge the FBI training manuals. Did you hear about the purge? This gentleman's shaking his head. You're reading the right blogs. It is not, you cannot see in any FBI manuals the word jihadist, Islamist, Islamic supremacy, Islam. You can't profile. So therefore, when the Boston Marathon bombers blew up a marathon and the FBI was informed by the Russians, hey, you got bad guys in that mosque, what did they do? Duh, we don't know what to do. We weren't trained what to do. And that is why John Guandola, former Muslim Brotherhood authority for the FBI, left the FBI. He sits on my board now. And I'm very proud to say that we have learned much from his guidance. There are 30 esteemed analysts that sit on the board of this radio show, and the mobilization that goes along with it, the National Security Communication Task Force. If there is an esteemed voice in this country, and actually in Israel as well, we have 2 from Israel now, they are sitting with me. On my broadcast, you will never hear conspiracy theory. You will hear intelligent, accurate, and measured information. I vow to you that I will never say something stupid that will have you all writing about me on social media or put me in the Arizona Republic. Because that is not going to save our country, it is not going to save my children, and it is not going to save your children. I had a brain accident in June, that's why I'm reading notes. Did you all know that? You all knew that. I had a car accident. Danny, Jan and Lou drove me up here today, and they had been with me by my side since June when somebody was text messaging and reared me from behind. And she was going 60 miles an hour and just kind of jostled my brain and put it into microhemorrhaging. And 4 weeks later, I had to be on a speaking tour. So I apologize for using my notes, but sometimes I just get, as we say in Yiddish, vertutzt. And by the way, who back there would get to put the Israeli flag? I want to, Susan, they sit on the front lines of Western civilization. I speak all over this country. I have never seen that. I want to thank you. I want to thank you very, very much. Nobody's ever done that. Thank you very much. Next week is Rosh Hashanah, so don't tell the rabbi I ate the shrimp. Here in Arizona, we wonder why we're not paying attention. If you go back and you remember the hostage crisis, you're all about my age or older, except for the students. Remember the Iranian hostage crisis, where you're riveted for 444 days to Ted Koppel, whether you liked the way he looked or not, because you were hungry to find out what was going on. You wanted to know who these people were. You know who they called them back then? Fundamentalists. When we first started to pay attention to these people in the block workers, and who are these guys with these hats, and who are these mullahs, and what's going on, we called them fundamentalists. And then what happened after that? Anwar Sadat was killed. We all paid attention in September. Anwar Sadat, he was killed. He was killed also by fundamentalists. Except what we know right now is that those were really Salafists. Those are the hardened guys in the Sinai who are burning Christian churches, who are putting Coptics at risk, which you all don't know. I don't say this very often in public, but I'm in Arizona, so I'll say it now. It's about John McCain again. Man's a good man. He fought hard. The International Republican Institute, of which he chaired, went to Egypt and helped Morsi win that election. Morsi was the head of the Muslim Brotherhood. Morsi is no longer in power because El-Sisi is in power, and now El-Sisi is throwing the Muslim Brotherhood in jail. John McCain picked the wrong guy there. And that's why I'm a little nervous about John McCain getting on Hannity and telling everybody, well, I've been there, I know what's going on. But what you all don't know, he hired Elizabeth Obagi, the public relations person for the Free Syrian Army. If you remember that, you hear it on my show all the time. We can go back to 1998, the Nairobi bombings, the USS Cole. None of this should have been a surprise for us. None of this should have been a surprise for us, but just as we find ourselves now unaware, caught with once again, not knowing what to do, these stories must be documented because of the horrificness of being in a terrorist attack. To this day, I can't get on an elevator. To this day, because I had to be involved in the 9/11 Commission reports, and I had to read them. And the stories that got me the most were the stories about the people. Well, you see, they kind of know where family members were, and those that were on elevators were really horrific stories. I want to tell you what's happening in Arizona and why you must get active and why you must stay active and be active. We have Somali penetration in our state. You have heard about Al-Shabaab. You have heard about Minneapolis. You have heard about what happens when they go back and forth to be trained and how they end up. I read last night that there are 12,000 people with Western visas right now in Syria and Iraq. 500 or so of them are Americans that still have their passports. Why can't we get those passports revoked? Why can we not stop the visa waiver program? Why can we not close the border? Why? Why do we have an electric grid vulnerable? Because none of you, or some of you, or not enough of you, are making enough noise in the way that it matters. We had the largest Twitter rally for Israel this summer. 600 tweets an hour. It made news. It made so much news that the phone rang and it was Al Jazeera. That's the Arabic paper, by the way. Who's in charge here? Who's logging up the logarithms? It was me. Sorry, I did it. And while we're talking about things, I am not about politics. I am a Republican. But for me, it's policy over politics. It'll be policy over politics every single day until I feel my children are safe. And that is why Tom Horn lost the election. Because unbeknown to him, he walked into my studio with an agenda. I was busy in South Carolina the weeks before. I had no idea there was this hoopla with Tom Horn. And then 48 hours before he's coming on, I get a phone call from one of my delegates, one of our activists here, who says, you know he supports the Gulen Turkish movement. I said, what? You know he's publicly endorsed the Gulen Turkish terrorist school movement, charter school movement. Took me 3 nights, whatever it was, of not sleeping, putting a team together, collecting his donor records, finding out he was supported by them. He comes into my studio, it's all on archives. You can listen to the archives now until I put them on for pay-per-view, but we gotta make money, folks. We can't do this on air. He was totally, he thought he was gonna meet a middle-aged Jewish woman who didn't have guts and gumption. And he was certainly surprised because I had the list in front of me of his supporters, and they were the Turkish school movement. And as long as I have Ken Bennett in the room, I will also tell you there are a few other people in your house, in your state house, who have went to Turkey on a free dime of the Erdogan and the Turkish government and the Gulen school movement. How many of you know what this Gulen school movement is? It's stealth Judea, I gotta come back. You guys have to listen. The Gulen school movement is a charter school movement out of Turkey. They come into the state, they take your money, they take the state money. Rose, Harmony, they name them after roses. They learned to name, that all sounds so poetic. It's what we call stealth jihad. It's the stealth, the quiet. It's not the bombing of 9/11 buildings. It's the undercurrent of getting into, get your kids, the first line of defense, get your kids. There's something like 40 of these schools in the state. And how do they do it? They go to the House, they go to your representatives, and they say, come to Turkey. I'm gonna give you a free trip. Michelle Reagan took her whole family, and she will kill me for saying that. But you need to know. You need to know so you can confront them. And they do this to desensitize your legislators. So when they come in front of you, in front of the State House, and come and say, we need money for our charter school, our Harmony, our Rose, our Science and Math Academies that are so great, the state gives them your money. And they don't hire American teachers. They hire Turkish teachers. They're teaching science and math, but they're also teaching them Ramadan dinner, desensitizing to women in burqas and hijabs. Do you want that for your children? If you send them to a good science and math academy, would you like an American teacher to be talking to them? This is what's happening in Arizona. The situation in Arizona becomes more serious every day. The situation with the Somali penetration, 3 blocks, 10 blocks away from me at the Coronado district, is even more horrific. In my office come law enforcement people all the time. Lisa, what's going on? What's going on down there? What's going on in that big mosque down there? 4 times as many mosques around this city than did 3 years ago. Islamic centers and mosques. They are the footholds. They are the recruitment centers. My first boss, Steve Emerson, went on Judge Janine the other night, and he said, every mosque in America has a recruiter for ISIS. 34 of them. When your pastors tell you that they are involved in, what's that dialogue? You know, interfaith dialogue. It's to desensitize the pastors, to desensitize you as a congregation. It is the most stealth jihad. So when you think about jihad, don't think about it as they're going to drop a bomb on Scottsdale Mall. Think about it as they got our kids. They're running for office. They're in the White House. They're on every college campus under Muslim Student Association. And here's the worst thing of all. Let me just read you this before I conclude. The Muslim American Society of Arizona chapter, it's called MASAZ, M-A-S-A-Z, is the Arizona chapter of the Muslim American Society of Arizona. Their convention last year, attended by Kirsten Sinema, by the way, I think she was their keynote, was, and so was Imam Siraj Wahhaz. You can look him up. His connections to terrorism and Hamas are legendary. The Islamic Center of Northeast Valley. The Islamic Center of the Northeast Valley is led by Iman Anas Halial. He has liked Muslim Brotherhood spiritual leader Sheikh Yusuf Al-Qadari on Facebook so many times since 2010. Totally linked. Here's the picture of the center, by the way. This is done by Clarion Project, which is a Beltway and Israel-based think tank. Here's another one. Council of American Islamic Relations, CARE, as we are known. By the way, CARE is the unindicted co-conspirators to the largest terror funding network in the United States, the Holy Land Foundation. They are a 501c3. You can give them your tax-deductible dollars, but the FBI won't talk to them. Let's talk about their Arizona chapter. CARE Arizona is a chapter of the Council of American Islamic Relations. CARE's Arizona former chairman, Anas Halal, led the chapter from 2010. He is the Imam of the Islamic Center of the North Valley. He is a self-proclaimed follower of Yusuf Al-Qadari, the spiritual leader of the Muslim Brotherhood. Let me talk about Tucson, because I know you all want to know this. 66 times the Islamic Center of Tucson was mentioned in the 9/11 Commission report. 66 times. We still have an open border. Are you angry? Yes. I got more for you. I have a video that I'd like to show you, and then we're going to talk about this. Please show the video. You know who they are? They look like ISIS, don't they? That's a paramilitary training camp in Hancock, New York. Muslims of America, also known as Muslims of the Americas, is a branch of a Pakistani militant group named Jamaat al-Fuqra. It is led by a radical Sufi cleric named Mubarak al-Gilani, who was the mastermind behind beheading Daniel Earl. There are 22 of these camps. This was a video done by them and submitted to put fear in our hearts. We are working with Trent Franks and a few other individuals to even make them a foreign terrorist organization. Not one congressman in this country has wanted to touch it. Here is where they are located. They name themselves Ahmadabad, Red House, Virginia, Alieville, Odom, Georgia, Hassanville, Barry's Bay, Ontario, Canada, Islamburg, Hancock, New York, Holy Islamaville, their holiest, York County, South Carolina. I just uncovered 2 more in South Carolina. Dover, Tennessee, Commerce, Georgia, Sweeney, Texas, Louis Gomer is having a stroke, Merriam, Virginia, Alaska, Michigan, Los Angeles, Colorado, Dunlop, California, Alabama, Georgia, Maryland, Oklahoma, Virginia, and Washington. And we are going to work together to get our congressmen to co-sponsor this bill, because they are right now a nonprofit organization that can take your tax-deductible dollars. And you wonder why we're under a threat. This is in the United States of America. Sheikh Gulani is very old. The terrorist entities are fighting for front-page headlines. Our fear are 2 things right now: that the terrorist entities of Sheikh Gulani will start to percolate. Before he dies, he's going to want to unleash these 22 centers. As for your EMP, electromagnetic pulse, your Republican in Washington, Fred Upton, has a bill for 3 years that hasn't gotten out. You may shut that off. We get the gist. We have Islamic centers. We have Islamic Shifa clinics. We have 90 million people that didn't vote the last time. We have Franklin Graham that says, don't leave this in God's hands. God is in control. But he is, if you are upset be upset with yourself that we lost that last election, as we saw 90 million people did not vote. The hurdles we have as a nation and as freedom-loving people around the world are many. The socialists, the Maoists, the communists, the progressives, the jihadists, the Islamists, and the Shariaists are hoping you remain very naive. They hope that you remain at lunch, go home, and forget about it. I want to tell you why I can't forget about it. Because in 1945, there was an 18-year-old man that was serving in World War II under Eisenhower. And he was told, you have to cross the river, you have to go from France to Germany, you have to go and liberate and get out these Russian prisoners of war. His battalion went. He walked for a couple of days. More. When he got there to a town called Orndorff, it stunk. It stunk. It stunk of dead meat. And when they stopped and asked the people in Orndorff village, what is that? Did you smell it? No, I don't know what it is. My dad, Vincent Pandone, was that man. My dad was one of the first men in the world to open up the gates of hell to the first concentration camp, a sub-camp of Buchenwald. My dad said to me, you want to be Jewish? He was Italian. My mother was Jewish. You want to be Jewish? Do not end up in a pile of rubble. Promise me, Lisa. And to this day, my dad is gone. I made a vow to him. I will not go in a pile of rubble. And I will fight on to my last breath, and I'm taking you all with me.